Have you ever experienced the devastating impact of betrayal? In our latest story, From Betrayal to Redemption, the heart-wrenching journey of a cheating wife and her broken husband, we delve into the emotional turmoil and complex path to healing after an unexpected infidelity. Join us as we explore David's discovery of his wife Emily's affair, the intense confrontations, and their courageous efforts to rebuild trust and love. This powerful tale reveals the strength required to overcome betrayal and the possibility of redemption. Let's dive into this compelling narrative that will keep you on the edge of your seat. David never imagined that the love of his life would betray him. His perfect life shattered in an instant one night when he caught Emily, his beautiful young wife, in the arms of another man named Alex. His heart turned to stone as rage consumed him. In that moment, David knew he had to confront them and make them pay. The confrontation was brutal, and his revenge was swift. This is the story of how betrayal and vengeance collided, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Brace yourself for a tale of love turned toxic, where no one escapes unscathed. Sitting at the Miami International Airport on a Thursday morning, David wondered why he wasn't as excited as he thought he'd be. Emily was with his mom, Linda, at a nearby Starbucks. He saw his dad, John, returning to their gate where Michael, his brother, was already waiting. It was a last-minute decision for Michael to join them. Anyway, John sat down next to David and put his arm on the back of his seat. He looked at David for a moment. "What's the problem, David?" he asked. "You don't look like you're about to go on vacation." He was right. David's mood wasn't great. They had 9 days at a lovely home near Key Largo, Florida. Why wasn't he happier? He'd seen the pictures online, beautiful views, tropical plants, their own private pool. What more could he ask for? "Sorry, Dad," David said. "I'm just worried about the business." He told him that, though it wasn't the whole truth. John started talking about why they didn't need to worry. They had only 2 projects right now. One was a big deck, pergola, and water feature. Albert and Roman were handling that. The other job, the Smiths, was smaller, a deck and railing. The problem was the Smiths. They complained about every small thing. If it were up to David, he wouldn't have taken that project, but Michael sold it, and now they were stuck. David looked down the concourse and saw his beautiful wife, Emily, with his mom and brother Michael. They were chatting and laughing, holding their expensive Starbucks drinks. No, he thought, the business wasn't the real problem. Something felt off between Emily and him. This Florida trip began as a getaway for just the 2 of them. Then his mom found out and turned it into a family vacation. He glanced at his big brother Michael, moving through the airport without a care in the world. Michael was supposed to bring his latest girlfriend, but that didn't work out. He almost stayed home to manage the business, but Linda talked him into coming alone at the last minute. Honestly, David couldn't say he was glad Michael was here. Lost in thought, David didn't hear the boarding announcement until Emily grabbed his arm. "We're boarding, come on," she said, pulling him up. They walked towards the plane, but that uneasy feeling lingered. David couldn't figure out why, but he knew something was not quite right. School had always been hard for David. His early memories were not good. Frustration and failure were what he associated with school. While other kids got better at reading, writing, and learning words, he was stuck. Reading was tough. Now he knew he had dyslexia, but back then, there was no diagnosis. "Some children are just slower," his teacher said. He would see the disappointment in his mother's eyes after each parent-teacher meeting. At one point, they talked about putting him in special education. By then, David knew it was for kids with serious problems. Thankfully, that idea was abandoned. Reading for David was slow. He ended up memorizing words he couldn't sound out. So he remembered them, like recognizing a stop sign by its shape and color. It took much longer for him. Reading for fun was out of the question. In the backdrop of his school struggles was his brother Michael. School for Michael was easy, and life seemed easy too. He was smart, the star athlete, and fun to be around. Their parents were proud of him and praised him often, especially Linda. Even as a kid, it was clear David was a letdown to his mother. John was always calm about David in most things, but not Linda. She measured her success by her children's achievements. Naturally, she was drawn to Michael. By high school, the gap between Michael and David was obvious. Michael was the popular athlete, and David was the quiet, gloomy younger brother. David was a good athlete but not as respected as his tall, charming older brother. In Michael's senior year and David's sophomore year, Michael was the football team captain. He got a scholarship to a small but prestigious college in the East. Meanwhile, David played junior varsity football, was on the track team, and wrestled varsity, but their parents rarely missed Michael's football games. They were seldom there for David's wrestling matches. His senior year, David placed 4th in the state at 156 pounds, a decent accomplishment. John showed up for the tournament, but not Linda. It'd be hard to call Michael and David buddies. Sometimes David got involved with Michael and his popular friends, but Michael rarely invited him in. In their family, Michael was the star, and David was in the background. Linda was the driving force in their family. She wore the pants, and easygoing John just went along. This was especially true because of their family business designing outdoor spaces. Originally, it was called John Landscaping, run by John with a few seasonal workers. When Linda joined, everything changed. They took bigger projects, did more construction, hired more people, and expanded the business. Linda even thought they needed a new name to match their growth, and she was right. Linda had her flaws, but she was smart and driven. Though John was the president on paper, Linda ran things. Through high school, Michael and David worked for DOS, a company that designed outdoor areas. They worked on weekends, during vacations, and all summer long. David enjoyed this job. Since he had trouble reading, he learned things differently. He focused really hard on each task, which helped him in their family business. Designing outdoor spaces was one of the few things David did better than Michael. When they worked together, it was like a contest. Who was faster, who was stronger? Soon, David started winning these contests often, which really upset Michael. His younger, smaller brother was doing better than him. Michael said the work was for blue-collar people and that he was a white-collar type. He thought the work was beneath him. The summer David finished high school, Michael stayed back east for an internship. David worked for their family business that summer and felt less stressed without Michael around. His plan was to go to a local college in the fall and keep working for the family business. By the end of the summer, David was leading a crew alone. John was in charge of the landscaping crew, and Roman, their grumpy longtime worker, led the construction crew. Linda ran the business from the home office. The office was in a shop on their large property, which had a new family home and an older empty house that used to be the original home. The land was very valuable in Central Florida. During high school, David had a few girlfriends but nothing serious. He was always known as Michael's little brother, so he started thinking of himself that way too. His confidence with girls wasn't very high. Some buddies from high school also went to the local college with him. The social life at the college wasn't as exciting as what their friends at universities experienced. They had parties, fraternities and sororities, football games, and dances. David and his friends often visited them on weekends to get a taste of the real college life. They'd head home later, usually hungover and a bit sad about living at home and going to a local school. One weekend, they went to a party in Orlando at a big bar just outside town. You paid an entrance fee and could drink keg beer until it was gone. David's friends and he lost each other in the crowd, so he found a spot at the end of the bar. Staying there had its perks. He didn't have to wait in long lines for beer, and he could see everyone passing by. He noticed a tall blonde girl wearing a tight yellow sweater. She was a bit overweight but looked good. David asked if he could help her get a beer. She looked at him with a half smile, then finally said yes. He told her to take his spot while he got the beer from the bartender. When he came back, a tall guy was talking to her. David handed her the beer and stepped in front of the guy. The guy told David to move because he was talking to Emily. David gave him a challenging stare, something he learned from wrestling. The guy backed down and walked away. David introduced himself to Emily, and she smiled more openly now. They shook hands, her soft hand contrasting with his rough, calloused one. They started talking, and David learned that Emily was studying graphic design. She seemed a bit disappointed when she found out he lived in Central Florida and wasn't going to her university. As the evening went on, it got louder and more crowded. David moved closer to Emily to hear her better. At some point, he lightly held her waist. They felt close, even as the party went wild around them. Later, an announcement was made saying the buses back to campus were leaving. Emily said she had to go and looked at David. They both stood there, surprised that their nice evening was ending so suddenly. "Emily," David said. She looked at him. "It was nice meeting you," he said, stammering a bit, unsure of what to say next. "Here," she said. "Give me your phone." He handed it over, and she added a new contact, Emily. Then she gave him her phone and he added, David. She looked at him seriously. "Text me later." "I will," he said, a little in shock. He walked with her to the bus, and she gave him a quick kiss on the cheek before leaving. He stood there, watching her leave. David texted her the next day. It took her a while to reply, but they kept texting. They met up again the next weekend, and it was clear they liked each other. They talked a lot, found out they had similar backgrounds, and made each other laugh. Over time, they spent more weekends together. David even took Emily to the family's holiday party, where she met his parents and brother Michael. His parents liked Emily, but Michael seemed indifferent. However, after a while, David noticed a change. Emily started acting distant, often texting someone else and not saying who. David's jealousy grew, and one day he confronted her. "Are you seeing someone else?" he asked, trying to sound calm. Emily looked guilty. "No, David, of course not. It's just a friend." But David couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. David tried to ignore his doubts, but they kept haunting him. When Emily went to visit her friend one weekend, David decided to follow her. He felt ashamed, but he needed to know. He saw her meet up with Alex, a guy from her past. His heart sank, but he didn't confront them. Instead, he walked away, feeling betrayed and lost. When Emily returned, David pretended everything was fine. But inside, he was planning his next move. He knew he had to deal with this betrayal, but how? He needed time to think and to figure out what to do next. Meanwhile, the family vacation was coming up, and David hoped it would help him clear his mind. But as the day of departure approached, his anxiety grew. He couldn't shake off the feeling that his life was falling apart, and he didn't know how to stop it. As they boarded the plane, David looked at Emily, who seemed happy and carefree. He wondered if she had any idea how much she had hurt him. He vowed to find out the truth and to make her pay for her betrayal. But for now, he had to play along and pretend everything was normal. The vacation had just begun, and so had David's quest for the truth. As the plane took off from Miami International Airport, David stared out the window, lost in thought. The tropical sun glinted off the wings, casting fleeting shadows over the blue ocean below. Emily sat next to him, flipping through a travel magazine, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing inside her husband. David's parents, John and Linda, were seated a few rows back, chatting animatedly about their plans for the week. Michael, already absorbed in his tablet, had claimed a window seat farther down the aisle. David felt a pang of irritation. Michael always seemed to glide through life without a care, while he was constantly weighed down by burdens. "Excited for the trip?" Emily asked, nudging David with her elbow. David forced a smile. "Yeah, it should be fun," he replied, his voice lacking enthusiasm. As the plane leveled off and the seatbelt sign was turned off, David excused himself and headed to the restroom. He needed a moment alone to gather his thoughts. In the cramped space, he splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection in the mirror. "What am I going to do?" he wondered. Confronting Emily about her betrayal was inevitable, but how and when? He couldn't ruin the vacation for everyone else. Returning to his seat, David noticed Emily's phone on her tray table, unlocked and unattended. A surge of temptation washed over him. He knew it was wrong, but he couldn't resist. He glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then quickly picked up the phone and scrolled through her messages. His heart pounded as he read the exchange between Emily and Alex. The messages were casual on the surface, but the subtext was clear. They were planning to meet up again, and Emily had been lying to him. David's hands trembled as he put the phone back. Emily looked up, smiling at him, completely unaware of what he had just discovered. The plane began its descent into Key West, and David knew he had to hold it together for a little while longer. The family arrived at the rented house, a beautiful waterfront property with palm trees swaying in the breeze. It was perfect, just as the pictures had promised. David's parents were thrilled, and even Michael seemed impressed. "Wow, this place is amazing," Michael exclaimed, dropping his bags and heading straight for the pool. Emily grabbed David's hand and pulled him toward the master bedroom. "Come on, let's pick our room," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. David followed her, trying to mask his turmoil. The master bedroom was spacious, with a king-sized bed and a balcony overlooking the ocean. Emily threw herself onto the bed, stretching out luxuriously. "This is going to be a great week," she said, smiling up at David. "Just what we needed." David forced another smile. "Yeah, it looks perfect," he replied, though his mind was far from vacation mode. Over the next few days, the family settled into a routine of beach outings, poolside lounging, and exploring the local attractions. David tried to act normal, but his thoughts kept returning to Emily's betrayal. He found it hard to relax, constantly on edge and suspicious of every text she received. One evening, while the family was gathered for a barbecue, David found himself alone with Michael. They stood by the grill, flipping burgers and sipping beers. "You've been quiet," Michael said, giving David a sideways glance. "What's going on?" David hesitated. He and Michael had never been particularly close, but right now, he needed someone to talk to. He took a deep breath and decided to confide in his brother. "It's Emily," David said quietly. "I think she's seeing someone else." Michael's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously? Are you sure?" David nodded, his expression grim. "I saw messages on her phone. She's been meeting up with a guy named Alex." Michael frowned, looking genuinely concerned. "That's rough, man. Have you confronted her about it?" "Not yet," David admitted. "I didn't want to ruin the trip for everyone, but I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "You need to talk to her, David. Get everything out in the open. This isn't something you can just ignore." David knew Michael was right, but the prospect of confronting Emily terrified him. What if she denied everything? What if it led to a huge fight? The family vacation would be ruined, and their marriage might be beyond repair. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, David lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Emily slept peacefully beside him, unaware of the turmoil raging inside him. He couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. He had to confront her, to get to the truth. The next morning, David woke early and decided to take a walk along the beach. The sun was just rising, casting a golden glow over the water. As he walked, he thought about how to approach Emily. He needed to stay calm, to keep his emotions in check. When he returned to the house, Emily was up and making breakfast. She looked up and smiled as he entered the kitchen. "Morning, handsome," she said, her voice cheerful. David forced a smile. "Morning. Can we talk?" Emily's smile faded slightly. "Sure, what's up?" David took a deep breath. "It's about us, Emily. I need to know the truth. Are you seeing someone else?" Emily's face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. David's heart sank. Her silence spoke volumes. "David, she began, but he cut her off. "Just tell me the truth, Emily. Are you seeing Alex?" Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "but it's not what you think." David felt a mixture of anger and relief. "Then what is it, Emily? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me." Emily wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. "Alex is an old friend, David. We reconnected recently, and things got complicated. But I never meant to hurt you." "Complicated?" David repeated, his voice rising. "You've been meeting him behind my back, Emily. That's more than just complicated." Emily looked down, unable to meet his gaze. "I know, and I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't know how to tell you." David shook his head, feeling the weight of her betrayal. Why, Emily, why did you do this? She looked up, her eyes filled with regret. I don't know, David. I guess I felt neglected. You've been so focused on the business, on everything else. I felt lonely. David's anger flared. So you turned to another man? That's your excuse? Emily's tears flowed freely now. I'm sorry, David. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. David felt his resolve weakening. Despite everything, he still loved Emily. But could he forgive her? Trust her again? I need time to think, he said finally. I can't just pretend everything is okay. Emily nodded, her expression one of defeat. I understand. Take all the time you need. David left the kitchen, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. Their marriage would never be the same. The betrayal had cut deep, and healing would take time. As he stepped out onto the balcony, the morning sun warming his face, David knew he had a long road ahead. But he was determined to face it, one step at a time. The days that followed were a blur for David. The family continued their vacation activities, but a palpable tension lingered between him and Emily. His parents and Michael noticed but chose not to interfere, sensing that this was something David and Emily needed to work through on their own. David spent a lot of time alone, wandering the beach or sitting by the pool, lost in thought. He replayed his confrontation with Emily over and over in his mind, questioning everything about their relationship. Despite her assurances, he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the ocean, David found himself sitting on the deck, staring out at the water. Michael joined him, carrying 2 beers. He handed one to David and sat down next to him. How are you holding up? Michael asked, breaking the silence. David shrugged, taking a long sip of his beer. I don't know, man. It's all such a mess. I don't know what to believe anymore. Michael nodded, looking thoughtful. You know, David, relationships are complicated. People make mistakes. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you have to fight for what you believe in. David looked at his brother, surprised by his insight. What do you mean? Michael leaned back, gazing at the stars beginning to appear in the night sky. Emily made a mistake, a big one. But if you still love her, and if she's willing to make things right, maybe it's worth fighting for. Maybe you can find a way to move past this. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not that simple, Michael. She lied to me. How'd I trust her again? Michael turned to him, his expression serious. Trust can be rebuilt, David. It takes time, and it takes effort from both sides. But it's possible. The question is, do you want to try? David didn't answer immediately. He stared at the horizon, deep in thought. Did he want to try? Could he find it in himself to forgive Emily and rebuild their marriage? The next morning, David woke early again and decided to take another walk along the beach. The cool morning air helped clear his mind. As he walked, he found himself thinking about the early days of his relationship with Emily, their first date, the nights they stayed up talking about their dreams and future, the way she made him laugh. Despite everything, he realized that he still loved her deeply. When he returned to the house, he found Emily sitting on the porch, her eyes red from crying. She looked up as he approached, a mix of hope and fear in her eyes. Can we talk? She asked softly. David nodded, sitting down next to her. Yeah, we need to talk. Emily took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. David, I know I hurt you. And I know I can't change what I did. But I want to make things right. I want to earn back your trust. David looked at her, searching her eyes for sincerity. How, Emily? How do we move past this? Emily reached for his hand, holding it tightly. I think we need to be honest with each other. Completely honest. No more secrets, no more lies. We need to talk about everything, what led us here, what we need from each other, and how we can rebuild our marriage. David listened, considering her words. He knew she was right. They needed to confront their issues head-on if they had any hope of moving forward. Okay, he said finally. Let's start now. Let's talk. For the next few hours, they sat on the porch, opening up to each other in ways they hadn't in years. Emily talked about her feelings of loneliness and neglect, while David shared his struggles with balancing work and their relationship. They both cried, apologized, and promised to do better. By the time they finished, the sun was high in the sky. David felt emotionally drained but also lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. They still had a long way to go, but for the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. That evening, the family gathered for dinner, a sense of normalcy beginning to return. David and Emily exchanged small smiles, a silent acknowledgement of the steps they were taking to heal. After dinner, as they sat by the pool, David took Emily's hand. "I know it's not going to be easy," he said quietly. "But I'm willing to try if you are." Emily squeezed his hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm willing, David. I love you, and I want to make this work." David nodded, feeling a sense of resolve. "Then let's take it one day at a time." The following days were a mix of progress and setbacks. David and Emily continued their conversations, working through their issues and rebuilding their connection. There were moments of doubt and frustration, but there were also moments of laughter and closeness. One evening, as they walked along the beach, Emily stopped and looked out at the ocean. "David, there's something I need to tell you." David's heart skipped a beat, fearing another revelation. "What is it?" Emily took a deep breath. "I've decided to end things with Alex. Completely. No more contact. I need to focus on us, on our marriage." David felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, Emily. That means a lot." She turned to him, her expression serious. "And I want us to go to couples therapy when we get back home. I think it will help us work through everything." David nodded, agreeing. "I think that's a good idea. We both need support to get through this." As they continued their walk, David felt a renewed sense of hope. It wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to fight for their marriage. They had a long road ahead, but they were taking the first steps together. The vacation came to an end, and the family returned home. David and Emily kept their promise and started therapy, working hard to rebuild their relationship. It was a challenging journey, but with each passing day, they grew closer and stronger. In the end, the betrayal that had threatened to tear them apart became a catalyst for change. They learned to communicate better, to prioritize their relationship, and to support each other through the ups and downs. Their love, though tested, emerged stronger and more resilient. David and Emily knew that trust and healing would take time, but they were committed to the journey. They had faced their darkest moments and come out on the other side, ready to build a future together, one step at a time. Returning home from the vacation marked a new beginning for David and Emily. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they were committed to working through their issues and rebuilding their marriage. Therapy sessions became a regular part of their lives, providing a safe space to express their feelings, work through their pain, and develop healthier communication patterns. David found the therapy sessions challenging yet enlightening. The therapist, Dr. Collins, helped them uncover the root causes of their problems and guided them in rebuilding trust. Each session felt like peeling back layers of their relationship, revealing vulnerabilities they had long ignored. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, David and Emily sat on their living room couch, exhausted but determined. "David," Emily began, her voice trembling, "I want you to know how much I regret my actions. I know I've broken your trust, and I don't expect it to be rebuilt overnight. But I'm here, and I'm committed to making things right." David nodded, appreciating her sincerity. "I believe you, Emily. It's going to take time, but I'm willing to put in the effort too." They sat in silence for a moment, holding hands, drawing strength from each other. It was a small step, but it symbolized their renewed commitment to their marriage. As weeks turned into months, they continued to make progress. They planned date nights, rediscovered shared interests, and took time to appreciate each other's presence. Slowly, the emotional wounds began to heal, and a new sense of intimacy blossomed between them. One Saturday morning, David decided to surprise Emily with breakfast in bed. He prepared her favorite pancakes, fresh fruit, and coffee, arranging everything on a tray. As he carried the tray upstairs, he felt a sense of hope and excitement that had been missing for a long time. "Good morning, beautiful," he said softly, entering the bedroom. Emily, still groggy from sleep, smiled brightly. "David, this is so sweet." "Thank you." They shared a leisurely breakfast, talking and laughing, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. It was moments like these that reminded them why they had fallen in love in the first place. As the days passed, David noticed subtle changes in Emily. She was more attentive, more affectionate, and genuinely interested in his well-being. He, too, made a conscious effort to be more present, more understanding, and more supportive. They were no longer just going through the motions of a relationship, they were actively nurturing their connection. One evening, after a long day at work, David came home to find Emily waiting for him with a surprise. "I have something for you," she said, handing him an envelope. Curious, David opened it to find 2 plane tickets to a remote cabin in the mountains. "I thought we could use a getaway," Emily explained. "A chance to reconnect, just the 2 of us." David's heart swelled with gratitude. "This is perfect, Emily. Thank you." The trip to the cabin turned out to be exactly what they needed. Surrounded by nature, away from the distractions of everyday life, they had the opportunity to focus entirely on each other. They hiked through the woods, cooked meals together, and spent long evenings talking by the fireplace. One night, as they sat by the fire, Emily turned to David, her eyes filled with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot about our journey, David. I know it hasn't been easy, but I believe we're stronger now because of it. I love you more than ever." David took her hand, feeling the depth of her words. "I love you too, Emily. We've come a long way, and I'm grateful for every step we've taken together." Their time at the cabin was transformative. They returned home with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper bond than before. They continued to face challenges, but they tackled them together, drawing strength from their shared experiences. Months later, during one of their therapy sessions, Dr. Collins remarked on their progress. "You've both worked incredibly hard to rebuild your relationship," she said. "It's clear that you have a strong foundation of love and commitment. Keep nurturing that, and you'll continue to grow together." David and Emily left the session feeling proud of how far they had come. They knew their journey was ongoing, but they were confident in their ability to navigate the future together. As they walked hand in hand back to their car, Emily turned to David with a smile. "We did it, David. We really did it." David squeezed her hand, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. "Yes, we did. And we'll keep doing it, every day, for the rest of our lives." The months that followed were filled with joy and new beginnings. They celebrated their anniversary with a renewed sense of love and appreciation. They took up new hobbies together, traveled to new places, and made countless memories. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Emily rested her head on David's shoulder. "David, I've been thinking about something," she said softly. "What is it?" David asked, turning to look at her. "How would you feel about starting a family?" Emily asked, her eyes filled with hope. David's heart skipped a beat. He had always wanted children, but the past year had been so tumultuous that he hadn't dared to dream about it. "I'd love that, Emily," he replied, his voice filled with emotion. "I think we're ready." Emily smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. "I think so too." Their decision to start a family marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. They faced the future with hope, knowing that their love and commitment had seen them through the darkest times. David and Emily's journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came their way, together. Their love had been tested, but it had emerged stronger and more resilient. They had found strength in each other, and that strength would carry them forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And so, they embraced the future, hand in hand, ready to build a life filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities. Emily and David's decision to start a family filled their lives with new excitement and anticipation. They began making preparations, transforming the spare room into a cozy nursery, and researching everything they needed to know about parenthood. The months ahead would be a whirlwind of change, but they were ready to embrace it together. As Emily's belly grew, so did their bond. They attended prenatal classes, read parenting books, and talked endlessly about their hopes and dreams for their future child. Every kick and flutter from the baby brought them closer, reminding them of the life they were creating together. One sunny afternoon, David was in the backyard, building a wooden crib for the nursery. He had always enjoyed working with his hands, and creating something for their baby made the experience even more special. Emily came outside, carrying a tray with lemonade and sandwiches. She watched David work, a smile on her face. "You're doing an amazing job, David. The crib looks beautiful." David wiped the sweat from his brow and grinned. "Thanks, Em. I want everything to be perfect for our little one." Emily set the tray down and hugged him from behind, her hands resting on her belly. "I know it will be. Our baby is lucky to have you as a dad." David turned around and kissed her forehead. "And lucky to have you as a mom." The months flew by, and soon it was time for Emily's baby shower. Friends and family gathered to celebrate the upcoming arrival, showering Emily with love, gifts, and well wishes. The house was filled with laughter, and the air buzzed with excitement. As the party wound down, Emily and David sat together, opening gifts and reading heartfelt messages from their loved ones. "Can you believe how much support we have?" Emily said, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude. David nodded, feeling the same overwhelming sense of thankfulness. "We're incredibly lucky. Our baby is going to be surrounded by so much love." As they unwrapped a handmade quilt from David's grandmother, Emily's phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it and smiled. "It's a message from Dr. Collins," she said, showing David the screen. "She's wishing us all the best and says she's proud of how far we've come." David felt a rush of warmth. "She's been such a huge part of our journey. We should invite her to meet the baby once they're here." Emily agreed, touched by the thought. "Definitely. She's seen us through some of our toughest times." The final weeks of pregnancy were both exciting and nerve-wracking. They double-checked their hospital bag, went over their birth plan, and took long walks to help Emily stay active. Every moment felt like a step closer to meeting their baby. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Emily suddenly grabbed David's hand. "David, I think it's time," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and nerves. David's heart raced. "Are you sure? Do you feel any pain?" Emily nodded, breathing deeply. "Yes, the contractions are getting stronger." David jumped into action, grabbing their hospital bag and keys. They drove to the hospital, the car ride filled with a mix of excitement and anticipation. The reality of becoming parents was finally sinking in. Hours later, after a challenging but beautiful labor, their baby was born. David held Emily's hand tightly as they both gazed at their newborn, overwhelmed with love and emotion. "Welcome to the world, little one," David whispered, tears streaming down his face. Emily looked at David, her eyes filled with joy. "We did it, David. Our family is complete." The days and nights that followed were a blur of feedings, diaper changes, and sleepless nights. But amidst the exhaustion, there was an overwhelming sense of fulfillment and love. David and Emily were learning to navigate parenthood together, supporting each other through the highs and lows. One quiet evening, as they rocked their baby to sleep, Emily turned to David. "I can't believe how much our lives have changed. It's like we're living a dream." David smiled, his heart full. "It's the best dream, Em. I wouldn't trade it for anything." Their journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also brought them closer together. They had faced their fears, rebuilt their trust, and created a family rooted in love and resilience. As the months passed, David and Emily found their rhythm as parents. They cherished every milestone, from their baby's first smile to their first steps. Their home was filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a bright future. One sunny afternoon, they took their baby to the park for a family picnic. As they sat on a blanket, watching their child explore the world around them, Emily leaned into David, a contented smile on her face. "Thank you, David," she said softly. David looked at her, puzzled. "For what?" "For everything," Emily replied. "For sticking by me, for believing in us, and for being the best partner and father I could ever ask for." David felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you, Emily, for your love, your strength, and for giving me this beautiful family." They shared a tender kiss, their hearts full of gratitude and love. Their journey was far from over, but they knew that together, they could face anything. As they watched their child play, they felt a profound sense of peace. They had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. Their love had been tested and had triumphed, proving that with commitment, trust, and resilience, anything was possible. And so, they embraced the future, ready to create more memories, face new challenges, and cherish the beautiful life they had built together. Their story was one of love, redemption, and the unwavering power of family. Life with a newborn brought Emily and David closer together, their bond strengthening as they navigated the joys and challenges of parenthood. Their days were filled with baby giggles, late-night feedings, and endless diaper changes. Each small milestone their baby achieved felt like a monumental victory. One crisp autumn morning, as Emily prepared breakfast, David came into the kitchen, holding their baby. "Good morning, beautiful," he greeted her with a smile. Emily looked up, returning his smile. "Good morning. How did our little one sleep?" "Not too bad," David replied, kissing the top of their baby's head. "Only woke up twice. I think we're getting the hang of this." Emily laughed softly. "Let's hope so. I feel like a zombie some days." As they sat down for breakfast, their conversation shifted to plans for the future. They talked about their hopes and dreams for their child and the life they wanted to build together. "Do you ever think about moving to a bigger house?" Emily asked, sipping her coffee. David nodded. "I've been thinking about it a lot lately. It would be nice to have more space, especially as our family grows." Emily smiled at the thought. "Let's start looking at options. Maybe we can find a place with a big backyard for our little one to play in." Their decision to search for a new home added another layer of excitement to their lives. They spent weekends visiting potential houses, imagining the possibilities each one held. After several months of searching, they found the perfect home, a charming house with a spacious yard, nestled in a quiet neighborhood. The move brought a fresh start, and they quickly settled into their new surroundings. Life seemed perfect, but as they soon discovered, it had its share of unforeseen challenges. One evening, while David was working late at the office, Emily was putting their baby to bed when she noticed a rash developing on their child's skin. Concerned, she called David. "David, there's something wrong. Our baby has a rash, and it's spreading quickly," she said, her voice filled with worry. David immediately left work, rushing home. "I'll be there soon. Call the pediatrician and see what they suggest." The pediatrician recommended bringing the baby in for an immediate examination. Emily and David hurried to the doctor's office, their hearts heavy with concern. After a thorough examination, the pediatrician diagnosed their baby with a severe allergic reaction. "We'll need to run some tests to determine the exact cause," the doctor explained. "In the meantime, we'll prescribe medication to help manage the symptoms." The following days were tense as they awaited the test results. Emily and David took turns watching over their baby, ensuring their little one was comfortable and safe. The experience was a stark reminder of how fragile life could be. When the test results came back, they revealed that their baby had multiple food allergies. The pediatrician provided a detailed plan for managing the allergies, including dietary restrictions and emergency procedures. "This is going to be a big adjustment," Emily said, her voice tinged with worry as they left the doctor's office. David squeezed her hand reassuringly. "We'll get through this together, Em. Our baby is strong, and so are we." Adapting to their baby's dietary needs required significant changes in their daily routines. They meticulously read food labels, learned new recipes, and educated themselves on allergy management. Despite the challenges, their determination to provide a safe and loving environment for their child never wavered. As the months passed, they became more adept at managing their baby's allergies. Their vigilance paid off, and their child thrived, reaching each developmental milestone with joy and resilience. One sunny afternoon, Emily and David took their baby to the park for a picnic. They watched with pride as their little one toddled around, exploring the world with boundless curiosity. "Look at them go," David said, beaming with pride. "Our little adventurer." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with love. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" David nodded, wrapping his arm around her. "Yes, we have, and I wouldn't trade any of it for the world." Their journey as parents had taught them valuable lessons in patience, resilience, and unconditional love. They had faced challenges head-on, supporting each other through every trial and triumph. As they sat together, watching their child play, Emily turned to David. I know we've had our share of struggles, but I feel like we're stronger because of them. David kissed her forehead. I feel the same way. We've built a beautiful life together, and I know we can handle whatever comes our way. Their love story, once marred by betrayal and heartbreak, had transformed into a tale of redemption and strength. They had rebuilt their lives, created a loving family, and found joy in the everyday moments. With each passing day, their bond grew stronger, rooted in the knowledge that they could overcome any obstacle as long as they faced it together. Their journey was far from over, but they embraced the future with hope, ready to create new memories and cherish the life they had built. And so, they continued their story, a testament to the power of love, resilience, and the unbreakable strength of family. In the end, from betrayal to redemption, the heart-wrenching journey of a cheating wife and her broken husband isn't just a story about infidelity. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. David and Emily's journey through heartbreak, confrontation, and ultimately, forgiveness, teaches us that redemption is possible if both parties are willing to work for it. They faced their darkest moments, rebuilt their trust, and emerged stronger together. As we close this chapter, remember that true love can withstand the toughest trials, and sometimes, it's the hardest battles that bring us the closest together. Thank you for following their journey with us. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the heart and soul.